Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm really excited to have you all here. Let me go ahead and get my slides up and running. Just give me a thumbs up when you can see my slides, or at least my intro slide. All right. All right, well, welcome everyone to our webinar today, getting SharePoint ready for Microsoft 365 Copilot. Very excited to have everyone here. In terms of an agenda, we'll have a brief introductions. I'll introduce my co-presenters who are joining me today. Notes from the field. I've got some updates to provide you that I'll share with you all. And then we'll go into our presentation, our main presentation today, which is your SharePoint brain healthy enough for AI? And then we've got an amazing offer for you guys that we'll review at the end. So please hang out with us to the very end to see that. All right. So joining me today, I've got Nakia Carter and Harry Carter. They'll be talking about and providing you some insights into SharePoint. Nakia has extensive experience and is probably one of the industry leaders as it relates to SharePoint development. So you're going to get lots of insights. Please take this opportunity to basically ask any questions. And if you have any questions, please put those in the chat as we go through our presentation today. Just a little background on Griffin Consulting. For those of you that maybe this is your first time joining one of our webinars, we are a full-service IT services company. We primarily focus on supporting nonprofits. And again, what we do is basically become a trusted advisor, not only helping you with regard to deploying the technology, but also ensuring that you're maximizing the technology grant that Microsoft provides. We are a Microsoft partner. In terms of some of the nonprofits that we work with, range from startups, single person organizations that are just getting started to very large organizations that have 250 or more employees. So we have extensive experience working with nonprofits, and we'd love to add your logo to our list of organizations that we are supporting. All right. Notes from the field. There was a report, I guess their 2026 Nonprofit AI Adoption Report, which was a benchmark study of about 350 organizations. And I'll put a link to this report in the chat for you guys to be able to download and review. But some of the things that I pulled out, I think that are relevant today to today's presentation are a couple of things that I pulled out. What they found is that 92% of nonprofits are using AI tools in some way. I find that the case, and when we're talking to our clients about how they're leveraging it, definitely are using it. And some of the most common ways that they found in the report, and this kind of is supported by even our interactions with our clients, is definitely content creation, donor communication, research, and administrative tasks. Definitely using that to a great degree. Another interesting stat that we found is that, or that was highlighted in the report, was that less than 20% of those that were surveyed really reported having any sort of documented or repeatable AI processes that they can share across their teams. And so I think this kind of reflects, the infancy of where we're at with AI adoption, that we're still very early in the process. So, a number of the organizations that we're working with are very early in that phase, and again, are working through this process, just like many of you, I'm sure, are on this call today. And one of the things that I found, one of the stats that they talked about in this study that I think has definite relevance to our presentation today, is it found that almost half of them have no sort of AI data governance policy in place. And that's going to be a big part of what we discuss in our presentation today. So just some things I wanted to highlight for you. And again, I will put a link to this report in the chat for you to refer to. All right, some other things I just want to bring to your attention. Hopefully all of you are at a minimum leveraging the Copilot chat that is free that you all get as part of your Microsoft 365 subscription. A great way to start using it to helping you with content creation and research and the like. So if you're not leveraging that, definitely just wanted to make you aware that that is something that you do have. The other thing is Microsoft has come out with additional discounts, promotional pricing on their Microsoft 365 Copilot business. It was $21 per user, and these are based on the annualized, the annual pricing. It's been reduced down to $18 per user per month, based on an annual subscription. So definitely a great discount there if you're not already committed to the full-blown version of Copilot where you can integrate it with your full Office suite and develop agents and the like. This is a great opportunity to do that. And again, if you would like a quote, we'd be more than happy to provide you a quote, full quote for licensing as well. And you could reach us at copilot@griffin-consulting.com. All right. All right. Just kind of as a recap, in our March webinar, for those of you that may or may not have attended, one of the things that we covered there were kind of the 4 pillars, if you will, of a Copilot readiness or a Copilot deployment. And there were 4 things that we talked about, identity protection. And we gave kind of a checklist in that webinar of things that you need to cover and address in each one of these buckets. But identity protection, data governance, software as a service and AI app control, and then endpoint and app protection. So in today's webinar, what we're going to focus on is the second pillar, which is around data governance. And we're going to take a deep dive with that. And so at this point, what I'd like to do is invite Harry onto the stage. And Harry, if you'd like to go ahead and without further delay, go ahead and let's jump into the meat of today's presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Frank. Let me share my screen. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen.
I got you, Harry. I can see you.
All right, so welcome and good afternoon, everyone. This is Executive Briefing for Nonprofit Leaders Preparing for Microsoft Copilot. And the core message for today, before you deploy Copilot, ask whether SharePoint, the brain behind it, is healthy enough for AI. This presentation is brought to you by Griffin Consulting. My name is Harry Carter, and my co-speaker is Nakia Carter. All right, so if every employee received Microsoft Copilot tomorrow morning, tell me, what could they find? Would they be able to find your board reports, your executive communications? How about HR records, compensation information, donor data, their strategic plans, financial information, or other things? The point is that most organizations cannot answer that confidently. Would you know? Not guess, not assume, actually know. The uncertainty is the problem. So one of the biggest misconceptions in the market is that AI creates risk. Well, I'm here to tell you it doesn't. Copilot simply exposes the risk that already exists. So if your SharePoint environment is healthy, Copilot becomes transformative. If it's unhealthy, Copilot just accelerates the problem. So SharePoint is the brain behind Copilot, so remember that. And the brain needs to be healthy. So our brain stores memories, knowledge, and processes, everything you use to make decisions. When it becomes disorganized, with sensitive items in the wrong place, outdated mixed with current. You stop trusting what comes out of it, right? Well, organizations work the same way. Every donor relationship, grant, board report, policy, HR record, and piece of institutional knowledge lives inside SharePoint. This is the organizational brain, and Copilot depends on it for every answer it gives. So many organizations tell us they are ready for AI, and then we take a look into the brain, and we ah, routinely find sites nobody own or review, permissions nobody understand, former employees still connected, believe it or not. Thousands of unmanaged files, sensitive content shared broadly, and multiple versions of the same information. Usually, leadership is normally shocked, not because anyone created any risk on purpose, but because the brain has grown for years without a health check. So many nonprofits like yourselves are preparing to invest 20,000, 50,000, even 100,000 into AI initiatives without first asking whether the data is organized, secure, or even governed. If the answer is no, and you can actually tell yourself no, the risks are real. You're talking about poor AI results, you're talking about security exposure, compliance issues, users distrust, failed adoption, and ultimately lost investment. So what you see on the screen, so let's talk about reality for a minute. So what you see on the screen is a screenshot from a company that doesn't know what, these are companies that don't know what they're doing. This is actually what I see when I walk into most organizations. So these are good companies doing good work, doing good things. But as we were, being honest, it probably looks familiar. If you look at the screen, this is how most of our document libraries look. Over years, people create folders because it makes sense at the time. You have archive final, finals, finance file, new HR. You have the old ARR, HR. Sometimes you have new folders. It grows one department, one project, one employee at a time. So now look at the files. You look at these files here. You see budget file, budget copy. And I always ask one simple question. Which one is the most current document? The truth, most people don't know. And that's because they create that they're not, it's not because they're careless, it's because the organization has established and grown over years without a governance strategy. Everyone is trying to do the right thing, but everyone is doing it differently. How many of you have new folders in their system or folders named final, followed by another one called the final? Now imagine asking Microsoft Copilot to display on screen what is our current travel policy? What should Copilot do? Should it use policy documents? Should it use updated documents? Should it use policy final documents? Or maybe policy final? The answer is Copilot doesn't know. It doesn't understand your business rules. It doesn't know which document HR department consistently is official. It simply searches the information you give it. And that's why I always tell organizations, Copilot isn't the problem. This here is the problem. This is years of good people trying to organize information without common strategy. And here's the important part. Microsoft Copilot will faithfully search all of it. The results you get back will be a consistent piece of each and every one of it. So if your information is messy, your AI experience become messy. If your knowledge is organized, your AI become extraordinary. So the question isn't, is Copilot ready? Is SharePoint ready? Now let's look open one of these files. So if you open one of these folders, this is where things really get interesting. At first glance, nothing here looks really unusual. In fact, most organizations will probably tell me, hurry, our document library is organized. And they're right until we actually look inside and let's look at what we've accomplished over the years. General documents, file sharing documents, reports, old archive, new folders, and each one of these folders made perfect sense when someone created them. But nobody stepped back and asked, does this make sense for the organizer today, for the organization today? Now look at the document archives down here. You have documents called archive docs, do not delete, documents, document one, document two, meeting notes one, document notes, final documents, final documents. So let me ask anyone a question. Which one contain the information you actually trust? Because I honestly don't know, and neither does Copilot. Think about, we spend millions of dollars on Office 365, and you're about to spend more on AI. But we're asking AI to search and search this. Now imagine you're a new employee, just hypothetically. It's your first day. And then your manager goes and asks you, go find the latest meeting notes. Where would you start? Would you start in meeting notes? Would you start in meeting notes final? Meeting notes final? Most people open 3 or 4 documents before they find the right one. Now replace that employee with Microsoft Copilot. Copilot has exactly the same challenges. It doesn't know which file HR to trust. It doesn't know which report or financial approvals. It doesn't know the final is actually older than the other documents. It simply search everything it's given. This isn't a technical issue. This is an informational management issue. So over time, departments grow, projects grow, people come and people go, folders multiply, documents multiply, knowledge becomes scattered everywhere. So if employee can't consistently find trusted information, how can you expect your AI to do the same? The average knowledge worker spend hours every week searching for information. Now imagine Copilot searching through the same environment. The quality of the answers entirely on the quality of the knowledge. So if you got bad knowledge, it's going to give you bad answers. Now, this isn't just a messy document library. It's your organization. It's your organization knowledge base. And today is teaching Microsoft Copilot. So before you ask, what can Copilot do? We first need to ask, what have we taught Copilot? Because Copilot doesn't invent knowledge. It reflects the knowledge that we give it. So everything that not the Copilot get its information from is based on what is in the brain of SharePoint. So most nonprofits don't have large IT teams. So often it's one tech leader responsible for everything. They do security, support, infrastructure, project compliance. They handle the vendors. And now we're going to ask them to deal with AI. The problem isn't that they don't care, it's that there aren't enough hours in the day. So let's run a little self-check. Can you answer these 5 questions today? Who have access to sensitive information? What SharePoint sites have never been reviewed? What information could Copilot expose? Who owns every SharePoint site? Would you turn Copilot on for every employee tomorrow morning? If those questions make you a little uncomfortable, good, because that's where this conversation should start. Before you get Copilot, you should start thinking about how your brain is organized.
So the good news is that everything we just described is fixable. You don't need to rebuild SharePoint or delay your AI strategy or even start over. What you need is visibility, governance, ownership, and a roadmap. Organizations that succeed with Copilot have clear site ownership, permissions reviews, permission structures, governance standards, security controls, information architecture, and data classification. They know what information exists, where it lives, who owns it, and how AI will interact with it. This is why we created the SharePoint and Copilot Readiness Accelerator. The purpose is simple: to help organizations see which risks and opportunities exist, what to fix first, and how to prepare for AI. The assessment evaluates 3 areas: governance, so who owns it, who's managing the content, and where those policies exist; security, what's exposed, what controls are missing, where the risks are; and then Copilot readiness, what data is useful, what's risky, what to first remediate first. You receive an executive findings report, a SharePoint health assessment, security analysis, and governance review, as well as your readiness scores for Copilot and a prioritized roadmap, as well as some expert consulting hours. So no one just gets another report, you actually get a plan. So thinking about the example that Hare showed, the brain of your SharePoint having grown, let's look at an example of a clean SharePoint environment. So we look at the same environment from a completely different perspective. What you're now seeing here isn't just a cleaner SharePoint library. It's an organized knowledge structure. So if we look at the folders, we have all of the things that are related to this library or this operational part. You have board governance, compliance procedures, working policies and standards, things like that. So each folder represents a major business function within that business. Instead of creating folders whenever someone needs a place to save something, we actually organize in the library or libraries around how the data actually, or how the business actually operates with that data. So if you think back to the last slide when we were looking at the messy or the grown SharePoint libraries, we saw folders like new folder 1, reports old, final, archive. Those names tell us almost nothing at times. A lot of times they're based around what somebody decided to save a year ago without any structure or plan. So now if you compare it to this, where you have, board governance, compliance, procurement, strategic planning. So even if you're new, if you're new and you never worked here before, you have a basic understanding about, for this operations department, which data is living in which place. And that's important because SharePoint shouldn't just mirror someone's desktop. It should mirror your organization. If I'm looking for board policies, I know exactly where to start. If I'm looking for compliance, or maybe I'm preparing for an audit, I know exactly where the compliance documentation lives. They are not going, you don't have to go through searching 20, 30 folders trying to figure out where things are. It's a lot cleaner. So if you're going directly to procurement or strategic planning, you know exactly where to go to put things together for your strategic plan. You're not going to go and open archive or reports or the working standards. This is where your organization's approved policies and standards live. Employees don't have to wonder, is this the right policy? They know they can trust the data and the information is being maintained. But also notice something else. There aren't 50 folders, so you couldn't see it in the previous organizational library. But there are folders inside of folders inside of folders. You want to make sure you simplify that structure so that the experience is not only cleaner for SharePoint and not only cleaner for Copilot, but also cleaner for the employees as they search and filter for things. They have less time searching. There's no duplicated folders or duplicated file names. Documents aren't living in multiple locations. There's a single source of truth, and that's connected to Copilot. And now think about Copilot. It still respects your security, which would be put around the library or the things within the library. It still respects your permissions. But now it searches through the environment that's organized around the business, that's organized around the business instead of around years of accumulated individual habit. So the goal here isn't to create more folders. The goal is to create meaningful folders and metadata that reflects the departments, the business processes, and the way the organization actually works. So once we've organized the structure, we can then organize what's in each folder. And that's also where metadata becomes even more important. Metadata, ownership, approvals, and governance begins to make Copilot truly powerful. So now that you've organized the library, or now that we've organized the library itself, let's look inside one of the folders. This is for the board governance folder. Immediately you notice something different. Again, not a collection of files, it's organized knowledge. You can see that every document has a clear, meaningful name, like board bylaws and board charter, the board resolution registry. So there isn't any guessing. You don't see things like final and final and board new and things like that. You don't see those. So just reading the document name can help you already understand what's contained in it. But the real value isn't just the name of the file. It's everything also around the document. So every document is associated with the department that owns it. That creates accountability and gives context to both employees as well as Copilot. You have document type, which actually identifies what the document is. Is it a policy? Is it minutes? Is it register? That helps Copilot as well as SharePoint as well as Copilot understand the difference, understand the purpose of the documents before anyone ever opens it. There's an owner for every document. So if a board charter needs updating, we know exactly who's responsible for updating it. Knowledge without ownership becomes outdated pretty quickly. You also have status. So notice that every document has a status, whether it's approved, whether it's active, whether it's inactive. No one has to wonder or guess whether it's a reading draft or it's an outdated version. The sensitivity labels that can be placed here, like board information being confidential. So applying sensitive labels can help protect sensitive information while making it discoverable to the people who are authorized to see it. And Microsoft Copilot honors those permissions as well. It also has a review date. So every important document has a time for it to be reviewed. Governance isn't just about creating documents. It's also about making sure they stay accurate over time. There's versions. So there's no need for final. SharePoint keeps track of all your versions for you. So when people are actually going to look for the final document, they actually can find which version is the current approved document. No guessing and no searching through multiple copies. So let me show you why this matters, or let me tell you why this matters. Imagine board member asks Microsoft Copilot, summarize the decisions from our July 2026 board meeting. Because the documents are clearly named, because they're appropriately classified, because they're also approved, and because they have ownership, Copilot can quickly identify the correct meaning notes and provide the trusted summary. For another example, imagine your executive director asks, what does our board charter say about committee responsibilities? Instead of searching through dozens of documents, Copilot can locate the official board charter and summarize the relevant section in seconds. So it isn't just about making SharePoint look better, because this is kind of pretty, but it's about making your organizational knowledge more trustworthy. When people trust the information, they make better decisions. They spend less time searching. They avoid duplicate work. And they have greater confidence in the answers that Copilot provides, as well as having a better day than they would. Okay. Oh, next slide. I think it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so once the brain is healthy, everything changes. Imagine drafting grant proposal faster, creating board reports within minutes, summarizing meetings automatically, accelerating donor communications, preserving institutional knowledge, and finding information instantly. The real value of Copilot isn't writing emails, it's unlocking the knowledge already buried inside of your organization, which we know is a lot. Organizations that win with AI don't win because they buy licenses. They win because they prepare. So before your organization invests another dollar into AI, ask, is Copilot ready? Or even better yet, ask, is the brain behind your Copilot ready? The nonprofits that achieve the greatest returns on AI won't be the ones that deploy first or the fastest. They'll be the ones that are prepared first. Thank you all so much, and I'll hand it back over to Frank.
Thank you, Nakia. That was really good. Yeah, that first look at that library looked very familiar to me in terms of what my document library looked like prior to all this work. So one of the things that we have for you today is kind of an exciting offer around protecting your environment. And so basically going through a Microsoft 365 security and SharePoint governance assessment. And one of the things I'm going to share with you, a couple of things I'm going to share with you, the types of deliverables that will be generated as part of this assessment. So one of the first things that we do is we do run a Copilot readiness assessment against your tenant. And so let me show you what that report looks like and the types of information that you would be getting as part of this engagement. So let me bring this up. All right. Go. Let me know when you guys can see my screen. Good. All right. Thumbs up. Very good. So as part of the high level, and this would be something that we would do at the very beginning of the engagement, is actually to get a baseline to see where the organization sits today without any sort of modifications to their environment. So it kind of gives us a baseline so we can prepare kind of our roadmap. So a couple things that it'll identify right off the top is it will determine for us who are kind of your heavy hitter top users who are potentially good candidates for Copilot. And I know in a number of the organizations that we work with, and we actually recommend it, we think it's a best practice when they're looking to deploy Copilot, that they start with a pilot group, if you will. And so this kind of gives you some insight into who within the organization would that be. And so it's kind of good information for us to have and to kind of basically provide the organization. It might uncover, a new set of users that maybe prior to this report, you weren't even thinking about this particular user community. Also gives you kind of an assessment based on your usage and what you're doing. What would be the average return on investment? And there is a report there that kind of talks about some of these metrics and how that particular metric was developed. So that's also something that's provided as part of our assessment. And then it comes up with some key recommendations as to some high-level items that need to be addressed around security, data governance, that need to be addressed within the environment before rolling out Copilot, if you will, deploying it. One of the other really nice things that our assessment will provide is as it looks at the users in the organization that are potential candidates for Copilot, it also provides you some potential use cases for each of those groups or those users. Again, this is also a great way to kind of help if you're kind of stuck in terms of what are some ways that introducing AI and Copilot in our organization, what are some benefits that could accrue? What are some ways that our team members could really benefit from Copilot? So we'll provide you with some of those use cases that we kind of find as part of this initial assessment. So for example, here, R&D, really some low-hanging fruit here, right? Summarizing emails, helping to produce and refine technical documentation. For the marketing team, doing some brainstorming and planning. I know this is something I use all the time in terms of helping me with my marketing messaging because that is an art. And so definitely leverage brainstorming to kind of help me with my messaging as we're marketing to nonprofits. So definitely some potential use cases there that are kind of highlighted for you. Then it'll also give you an idea of who the top users, who your heavy hitters are within the organization in terms of their usage of all of the applications in the Microsoft stack. So that's kind of a good indicator as well in terms of what's going on in your environment. The other thing is we'll do some key findings. We'll summarize some high-level things around your adoption summary, how engaged the team is, your security foundation. So for example, I don't know how many of you have looked at your secure score, but this will kind of give us an insight very similar to that. Whether you've got multi-factor authentication, if it's been fully enabled, hopefully everybody on this call has got at least that enabled. And some other things around security that need to be addressed. And then data governance. And as Nakia talked about, this is, do you have DLP turned on? Are you leveraging sensitivity labels in terms of shared links for SharePoint sites? Maybe you haven't accessed in a while and you used to, share that data with an external provider, but, you didn't even realize you still were sharing it. So those are some things that we'll look at as well as part of this report. And then we'll look at some specific controls within your environment and let you know whether or not those controls have been enabled or not. Whether, here we're looking at identity and access management configurations to make sure or see if you've got these things turned on, such as conditional access policies. Do you allow unmanaged devices to connect to the environment? Also look at your email and communication, your Exchange configuration to see what's going on there, some of the high-level things, especially around auditing. Do you have that turned on? And then just general Microsoft 365 administration attributes as well. And then, as I mentioned, data governance controls. Do you have DLP, data loss prevention enabled? And then diving a little bit deeper into your SharePoint environment, looking to see, do you have guest access allowed, allowing guest access, or sensitivity labels applied to all your sites as well. And then one of the things that we find that users are really interested in seeing is we do provide kind of a detailed overview of all of the SharePoint sites that we find in the organization. And again, what kind of sharing is being allowed for that particular site. And a lot of times clients are, kind of shocked, like, what? We're still sharing the Mark 8 project team site? I thought we had shut that down. So again, this is just kind of good insight, provides us a good baseline in terms of our security and assessment engagement. And I'll turn it over to Nakia to talk about the roadmap and what that looks like in terms of the deliverable and what you can expect from our engagement. Nakia, you want to share that? All right.
Whoops, just did. And I think I double clicked, so it just went off. Okay, let me try that again. Okay, so from that assessment, as Frank was saying, we take that and we get a executive summary report out of it, as well as a roadmap to let you know exactly what you should probably be moving towards, or at least giving you some pretty some suggestions on how to move forward. So taking the information that was from that assessment and putting it into a nice executive summary with like the status of whether you're ready to go Copilot or not, how much risk you have at a high level, some of those stats, again, more of an executive type look and feel, but giving you some metrics around the different areas and the different uh, uh, pieces of information that come out of that assessment, like how many documents you have, how many users, things like that. Going into the SharePoint findings about, your SharePoint environment and how it's going to work with, or how it's looking for Copilot right now. Assessment around that, how many hub sites, inactive sites, active sites, communication sites, team sites, how many things were active, orphans, sites without owners, because again, ownership is very, very important to make sure the data stays fresh going into the library. So you kind of understand, I'll just go through these, the file analysis, metadata analysis, the search, permissions, governance, and then your Copilot readiness, about how ready you are, what are your major risks, what happens if you do certain types of prompts, which you would be expecting to see before the remediation and after the remediation. The top 10 priority recommendations of things that you should do, like removing duplicate records, duplicative files, standardizing metadata, creating document types, archiving obsolete content or deleting it, things like that. And then you get into the roadmap in different phases. From the assessment phase, which you first need to assess your environment and make sure exactly what's going on in your exact environment. The cleanup phase, cleaning up all the, the extra duplicates and things like that, archiving content or deleting it, putting in metadata, moving more forward with the information architecture, the permissions, the search, making sure that's all covered. Retention, if retention is needed, layering that in, doing the Copilot deployment for the pilot users, training and adoption. Of course, you want to always train folks on the proper use of things, not here's the tool, go forth and do. Actually, here's the tool, here's how you use it the best for your job and your role. Adoption, things like being able to ask questions so that people actually adopt the technology as opposed to working around it. And then any optimization that is needed before it's rolled out to the complete organization. Then it talks about some business benefits and the recommended engagement path in short. All right, so back to you, Frank.
Yep. Thank you, Nakia. So I'm going to give you here, I'm going to share again my slide here. So if you're interested in engaging us to help you with this assessment, I'm going to put on the screen here how you can reach out and take advantage of this particular offer. Let me know when you guys could see my screen. So to recap, what's included is we'll come in as part of this assessment. We'll kind of assess whether your sensitive board, volunteer, or program information is properly secured. We'll identify any security gaps that you may have. You receive a prioritized roadmap. Oh, one of the things that Nakia didn't mention is that you'd also receive a nonprofit data governance guide. So if you don't have a data governance guide, Nakia, do you want to talk a little bit more about that data governance guide and what they would get there?
Yeah, so it's something that would need to be specified towards your organization, but it gives you a template and a lot of great ideas around how to govern your data, as well as developing the policy and the naming conventions and everything that you need to make sure that your data is well secured, is owned, is clean, and is searchable and easy for a Copilot to work with, as well as your users to work with. It'll be something that you can use to implement a policy, or use it as your policy so that going forward, you have your set of rules that your organization can follow to make sure that the spaghetti doesn't happen later.
I like that, the spaghetti. Yep. And as a bonus, we also include a 6-month subscription to our Teams-based learning management system for up to 100 users in your organization. That includes cybersecurity awareness content that's distributed on a monthly basis. And also it has a ton of Microsoft 365 user training to help with adoption. So, and for those of you that attended the webinar, we get a special price of $29.99. So if you're interested, go ahead and scan the QR code there. And there's a form that you need to complete, and we will reach out to you and get started.